So hello academic writing students, I just want to provide a brief video with some commentary about what was posted yesterday, in particular about research paper steps, and a little bit about the assignment. And then as usual later this week, I will post follow-up commentary on Friday when your assignments are due, addressing what's to be found in the material that was posted, in particular the document-based question, or DBQ, related to labor and its success in America between 1875 and 1900. So what I also posted was one list of research paper steps. So this is something that I've created, and I think it helps to get a grasp on what the process is in writing a research paper. So as we've done many times before, the first thing that you have to do is establish a general topic, and then further define a topic or take a position, often by asking ourselves a question. So that's the challenge in a research paper. In the past, as in say 3, I would give you a topic and I would give you a question, and then your job was to respond to that and write an argumentative essay. Here, you have to choose the topic, and sometimes you don't even know your position on that topic. So before you go any further with a research paper, you at least have a general topic and you're trying to find a position. Sometimes you don't find a position right away. Sometimes you begin the research about the topic not knowing what you want your thesis to be yet. And that's okay. That's part of research, is exploring a topic that interests you, hopefully. If you're choosing one that interests you, I would recommend that. And then developing a position. So these steps don't always go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in order, or there's a lot of movement between them. If you have a position and you know what you want to say, then you start proving it. So that gets us to point 3, where you find appropriate sources. If you don't have a position, then you're already reading about material in order to get a position. So that's why we allow so much time for these assignments to be turned in. So once you find appropriate sources, and it says here in the notes, you write down source information, and there's a lot of information in your book from page 135 to 173 about how to do that, and we're going to talk about that, but we'll do that next week. You have to examine those sources next for relevant information. So this was primarily the activity this week. It's taking a look at various sources that are out there and trying to get some kind of relevant information. The more relevant information, the greater its relevance, and the more easily you can use it, the better the source it is. Of course, it has to be reliable, and that's a big question that we're going to come back to next week as well. But there are many sources out there that you can use: articles, books, the internet, other research papers, interviews, newspapers, films and videos, documentaries primarily, encyclopedias, TVs, news, reports, statistics, lectures, presentations, images, and cartoons, as you can see in the DBQ, can also be useful. Direct or primary sources like letters and contracts, other primary documents, are also possible. So you'll probably be, given our situation in Serbia, using the internet a lot, because our database for English information is pretty restricted. So you have to make sure that those sources are relevant and credible, and you do so by asking yourself some questions. Can this info be verified? Are there citations and links? How old is the information? When was the site created? Who is the author and the creator? What is the purpose of the site? Who is the sponsor? Is it sponsored? Is it objective? Is it subjective? Is it issued by a for-profit agency? Is it issued by a non-profit agency? Both of those can have agendas. So you have to decide whether the source is, let's say, eligible for use. And we're going to talk more about that next week. This week, I've given you your sources, and it's simply to try to use them to extract reasonable information for your argument. The other steps that would come after it is taking that information and transforming it so that it fits in your paper. That's research step number 5, extracting the information and rewriting it or rephrasing it. We're going to talk more about that next week as well. Generally, when you find the information, you're going to do one of several things with it. You're going to paraphrase it, you're going to summarize it, you're going to quote it. And and there are specific instructions for that, and we're going to practice all those elements. So we'll come back to that in the discussion next week. Then, of course, you write your actual paper, citing your sources. Hopefully, you're tracking them. You got to keep track of where you get your source information from. We're also going to talk about that more next week. And you do so in the paper and at the end. So it says, state on research paper, step 6, cite twice. We'll talk about how to do that. And finally, you edit it, and then maybe do it again. But sometimes, you get through step 6, and you're like, wait a second, I need more here. And you go back and you do 3 again, and 4 and 5. And so 1 through 7 is like a snake that's eating itself. You're going to be constantly going back in this process of writing a research paper, and that's why you have time to do so. So that's basically what I wanted to say quickly on those elements, many of which we'll be covering in more detail next week. I also want to cover just briefly your assignment. I issued it yesterday. Hope you've had a chance to look at it. When you do so, just to provide a little bit of clarification on what I want you to do. So there is a question at the bottom of page 1, and it's basically, and now I don't have it in front of me, but how successful was labor in changing workers' circumstances in the period of American history from 1875 to 1900 and improving working conditions? So that's what you have to answer. And your answer to that question is essentially your thesis. So you have to have a thesis, and you have to have 2 to 4 or 5, whatever, how many topics you want in a 5-paragraph essay format with topic sentences to answer that question. How do you do that? Well, if you're like me, you're not an expert on American labor movements and their success between 1875 and 1900. So in the assignment itself, this is issued for, AP American History, which is a college level American history class. And you use your knowledge of that period plus the documents to construct a cohesive paper. You don't have to do that. You don't have to write an entire paper. We are not studying American history right now, so we don't have that additional knowledge to offer. So we have to use only the documents. So that's actually the difficulty of this task, is to use the documents to construct a position. Having very likely little or no knowledge or restricted knowledge of this particular period in this particular place and the particular conditions at play. So that's where your assignment comes in. Construct a thesis and write topic sentences for what would be your topic paragraphs based on what you find. So there are various documents. All of them come from this period. They are A through I, and each one of them has potentially useful information. So your job is to write down what that information is. You don't have to put it in a sophisticated form. You don't have to put it as if it would be in your paper, but for what do you find, and for each source, you write in a sentence or 2 or 3 or 4 what you found. That contributes towards answering the question posed and could support your thesis. So that's the assignment. Hopefully you'll make good progress on that in the coming days. It is now Tuesday, so you have 4 more days to complete that, and write a description for each source, whether it's a cartoon or a U.S. government document or a newspaper article or a worker contract, what in that source is relevant. And then once you've gone through all the sources and you found relevant information, then you come up with a position. So it's a little bit of the reverse of what a typical path might be, where you know your position and then you go out and find it and defend it. But many research papers also take form this way. You find a topic, you explore it a little bit, you develop a position, and then you further explore it to defend your position. So good luck with that. If you have questions that are easily answerable, you can always send me an email and I can provide some, hopefully, quick clarity on that. Otherwise, I'll be posting again on Friday with a more detailed explanation regarding the document-based question. And coming next Monday, we'll be pushing further with our academic writing research paper tasks, assignments, and elements. So stay safe and good luck for a few days. And then on Friday, I'll check in again. All right. Bye-bye.